Iran's deadly missile strikes on Pakistan-based militant groups in Balochistan have ignited a diplomatic crisis between Tehran and its nuclear-armed neighbour. This comes at a time of existing tensions in the Middle East due to the Israel-Hamas conflict. Iran-backed Houthis attacked on several vessels in Red Sea, and Iran's latest strikes have further sparked fears of regional unrest. Two bases of Balochi militant groups, Jaish-e-Adl, in fact, in Pakistan, were targeted by missiles on Tuesday. The Iranian Revolutionary Guards had attacked targets in Iraq and Syria with missiles just a day before. Pakistan has warned of serious consequences to Iran, saying that the strikes were illegal and an unacceptable act. Pakistan today recalled its ambassador from Iran and also stopped Tehran's envoy from returning to Islamabad. Now the question is, with Iran upping its ante, is there a real danger of war spreading? Let me bring in my guests now. Dr. Qamar Cheema is joining me from Islamabad. He is strategic and political analyst. We have Dr. Hassan Al-Hassan. He's a senior fellow of Middle East policy at the International Institute for Strategic Studies. We also have M.H. Suratwala joining me from Tehran. He's a scholar at Al-Mustafa International University. Dinkar Prakash is a former Indian ambassador to Iran, and Tara Karta is a former director of National Security Council Secretariat. I'm going to begin with Qamar Cheema. Qamar Cheema, these attacks are coming amidst increased interactions between Pakistani and Iranian officials, both civilian and military, in recent days. One may wonder, was that really a farce?
Well, I think in Iran, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards and the Ayatollah Khamenei, they completely and they operate separately from what the government does. So I think the Iranian special envoy for Afghanistan was in Islamabad. Iranian foreign minister met with the Pakistani prime minister in Davos just yesterday. But you see, these kind of facts, they do not come from politicians normally. So it is the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, which is a trigger-happy, a deep state, we all know, which has been involved in the instability in the entire Middle East. And now we have seen they have tried to disturb the relations between Pakistan and Iran. So I think that there is a one factor in that. Secondly, I think there is a lot of burden on the Iranian leadership because of the atrocities, because of all that killings which are being done by the Israelis in Gaza. So they have failed to respond to that. So they are targeting to the friendly countries like Pakistan, Syria and Iraq, just to give an impression that Iran does have that capacity. But in reality, I think Iran has created a distance between Pakistan, which is we have been calling it a friendly, neighborly Islamic country. But remember, Pakistan and Iran have 2013 security agreement. The Iranian authorities could have spoken with Pakistan in case there was something they really wanted to engage with Pakistan, or they had some kind of an issue. But these kind of actions which have been taken by Iran, they are being condemned in the entire length and breadth of the country. They violated Pakistan's airspace. They violated Pakistan's territorial sovereignty. And this is totally against the spirit of the friendly relations between both
Mr.
the countries.
Suratwala, my question would be, yes, that is this an indication that if it is not, if on one hand the Iranian government wants to have good friendly ties with Pakistan, but on the other, if these kind of strikes happen, is there an indication that this is a parallel group which is running and Iran has nothing to do with it?
मैंने जैसे यहाँ पर मीडिया को देखा है और ऑथोरिटीज के यहाँ पर जो बयानों को सुना है और फॉलो किया है, मुझे जो समझ में आया वो मैं यहाँ ये कह सकता हूँ कि आज ईरान के प्रेसिडेंट ने अपनी कैबिनेट मीटिंग में भी इस बात की तारीफ किया है कि जो बलूचिस्तान के ऊपर ईरान की तरफ से अटैक हुआ है IRGC की तरफ से, उसकी उन्होंने तारीफ किया है और शुक्रिया अदा किया है। दूसरी बात जो यहाँ बहुत जरूरी लगती है, जो यहाँ के मीडिया में मैंने देखा और मैं बयान करना चाहूंगा, वो ये है कि ईरान अपनी तरफ से ये कोशिश करता रहा है पिछले 13 से 15 साल के दरमियान में, जब से ये जैश-उल-अदल ने अपनी एक्टिविटी, टेररिस्ट एक्टिविटी को शुरू किया है खास तौर पे, जिसमें आज से 13 साल पहले जो इनका चीफ था अब्दुल मालिक रेगी नाम का बंदा, उसको वो लोगों ने प्लेन से भी उतरवा दिया था जब वो दुबई से ईरान की एक नेबर कंट्री में जा रहे थे, और ईरान के एयर स्पेस में जब आए थे उसको उतारा था। आज से तकरीबन 1.5-2 महीना पहले जब ईरान के ऊपर एक अटैक होता है रास्क नाम की एक छोटे से शहर के ऊपर, ईरान के होम मिनिस्टर ने, डिफेंस मिनिस्टर ने, यहाँ के प्रेसिडेंट ने और फॉरेन मिनिस्टर ने अपनी तरफ से बहुत कोशिश किया कि ईरान जैशुल अदल, कि जिसको यहाँ पर ये लोग जैशुल जुल्म कहते हैं, उसके खिलाफ कोई बड़ा एक्शन ले और उनको किसी तरह से लिमिटेड करे और उनको उसकी सजा मिलना चाहिए। ईरान की गवर्नमेंट ने जब ये देखा कि उनको कोई सजा नहीं दी जा रही है और कोई सीरियस अटेम्प्ट नहीं कर रहा है पाकिस्तान, तो ये लोग इस बात के लिए मजबूर होते हैं। इस बात को ये लोग कहते हैं कि यूएन में आर्टिकल 51, कि जिसके अंदर ये कहा गया है कि किसी कंट्री को दूसरी कंट्री के ऊपर किस वक्त हमला करने का, किसी जगह पर टारगेटेड लेकिन हमला करने का इख्तियार दिया जाता है, तो उसमें से एक जगह ये बयान की जाती है।
चार्टर को कौन फॉलो कर रहा है सूरत वाला जी? सवाल तो ये है, नोबडी इज फॉलोइंग द डिक्टेट और यू नो the principles of UN Charter. Tara Karta, you know, we have been talking about a possible counter attack by Pakistan as well, but Pakistan would be wary of getting pulled into a wider conflict. Pakistan might instead look at strengthening ties with Iran's rivals. What do you think are the options before Pakistan?
Actually, the Pakistan army chief was there in July. They were talking about trade, settling the border, getting trade across. All that was going on. There were various official visits. To some extent, what the Pakistani rep said is right. There has been an attempt. But the fact is, Iran has said very specifically, we are attacking those people who are attacking us. Right? That's what they've said. And this whole Jaish-e-Odal and Jaish-Jundullah before it, since 2000, has been attacking Iran. And a number of times that Tehran has requested them to take action, they have never done anything. And if you remember, Jaish-e-Odal was suspected to be behind, that kidnapping of our own naval, the Kulbhushan Yadav. There was all that stuff going on. So there is no link. This is very significant. There is no link between Jaish-e-Odal and the Baloch resistance groups. So it's not a Baloch resistance organization. It doesn't want freedom. Then we don't know what it actually wants. So if this is taking place, then in this particular case, I'll say Iran has some justification. This has been going on for long. However, the fact remains that Pakistan has to respond, but hopefully, like he said, those existing official ties which are friendly will take over and they will try and sort this out. They brought out a press release saying that, you have so many channels of communications, but those channels have been used in the past.
Okay.
And nothing happened.
Okay. Dr. Al-Hassan, which side does because there are multiple stakeholders who have emerged in this ongoing conflict. How is the Middle East in general? Of course, there are various countries and all of them have different stakes in this war that is going on. Qatar is looking at it differently from Saudi Arabia and UAE and other countries. Give us a sense, how much of the fear of this war expanding is now looming large, particularly with this conflict which has begun on the sidelines between Iran and Pakistan?
Well, this conflict has already begun to spread quite significantly. It has reached Lebanon, of course, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, the Red Sea, and now we're seeing potentially a spread also east of Iran. Obviously, it's never good news when a nuclear threshold state and a nuclear armed state go head to head. Tension between nuclear and nearly nuclear powers is obviously not something that anyone wants to see. The issue here isn't actually that Iran is attacking a group in Balochistan. The issue is actually the context in which it is happening and the timing at which it is happening, because it coincides very closely with Iranian attacks in Iraq and Syria, which begs the question as to whether all of these things are interrelated. So in a sense, Iran has attributed the support that Jaish al-Adl receives to Western powers. Iran has had a habit of accusing the US and Israel of standing behind Jaish al-Adl, which has been responsible for many attacks, of course, against Iran, many of them which have been quite deadly. And so, in a sense, I think this idea, the fact that Iran sees foreign powers as standing behind Jaish al-Adl, could perhaps help explain and tie the attacks against Jaish al-Adl to the wider context of what Iran is doing at the moment. Because Iran, in its strikes on Iraqi Kurdistan, claimed to have attacked an Israeli Mossad center, and again claims to attack targets that are directly or indirectly linked to Israel and to the United States. So this could be part of what Iran sees as a series of messages and attacks targeted at Israeli and Western interests.
Okay.
The other thing to consider here, I'll just say very quickly, is that Iran may suspect Jaish al-Adl of having been connected in some fashion to the suicide attack that was claimed by the Islamic State Khorasan province earlier this month that led to many casualties in Iran. Iran may also be sensing a degree of activity by separatist groups like Jaish al-Adl, who might be seeking to exploit the current chaos and escalation in the Middle East to ramp up activity. So from the Iranian perspective, this may have been a preemptive strike against the group. It may also be linked to its targeting of Israeli and Western targets, at least those that it considers to be linked to those entities in the wider regional context.
Okay. So coming on this, Ambassador Srivastava, how is India viewing these entire developments? Because, one country is not really a friendly neighbor here.
I think this has to be seen in the context of rise of sectarian tensions within Pakistan and Pakistan's policy of using Shia-Sunni divide to curb Baloch nationalism. This is the second dimension of Pakistan's policy is to use non-state actors to maintain deniability. Now, at some point, this can get out of hand. So Iran, like India, has been a victim of terrorism by groups based on Pakistani soils. This is not the only incident of this kind. A month ago, 13 Iranian border guards had died. And if you go back, the day Pulwama took place in India, a day before, in an absolutely identical attack, 27 Iranian border guards were killed. They were traveling in a bus which was rammed by a jeep, and later it was found that the suicide attacker was a Pakistani national. So there's a long history of such attacks emanating from Pakistan against the neighboring countries. Now let me come to the third factor, and it's really too much of a coincidence. Pakistan is at odds with secular India. It is at odds with Shia Iran, and it is now also at odds with Sunni Afghanistan. So, the only common link between these three different situations is Pakistan itself. So there has to be something within Pakistan which is driving up this conflict. Pakistani Foreign Ministry statement that, there were channels of communication open and why did Iran have to do it? These are we have heard these kind of statements. And it's not a band-aid policy which is going to bring this to an end. You have to take action against such groups which are based in Pakistan. Let me conclude by pointing out that after 9/11, Taliban headquarters or Al-Qaeda leadership, Mullah Omar, shifted to Quetta. It was Quetta Shura which directed Taliban for next 2 decades nearly. And, Taliban were a Pashtun organization. Balochistan is not a Pashtun province. So somebody gave them protection. And the only reason was to use Shia-Sunni divide to curb Baloch nationalism.
I think that's very well put, given the kind of problems or conflicts Pakistan has with all its countries surrounding it. Kamar Chima, elections are going to take place in February. And with this kind of antagonism which is playing out with Iran, also with Afghanistan. What does it do to domestic politics there?
Well, normally Iran is not a part of any kind of a domestic deal in Pakistani politics. In Pakistani elections, Iran is not discussed. Even for some time, India has not been discussed. So I don't think so that Iran will be discussed in the elections. But yes, the political parties have been speaking on this Iranian aggression and unprovoked Iranian aggression. And at the same time, the caretaker government is installed in Pakistan. The caretaker prime minister is not in the country. But I think largely the response is to come from the GHQ, from the Pakistani military, and from the Foreign Office. From the Foreign Office, response has come, and there is a likely possibility that there could be a military response because people in Pakistan, they believe that Iran has just violated Pakistan's sovereignty, and Pakistan has all
but the sense would
rights.
Be also that it is more vulnerable if countries which are Islamic nations are also there. If it leads to tension between them and Pakistan, then it makes it more vulnerable. Would you agree with that, Tara Karta?
See, Pakistan, in terms of saving face, so to speak, the Pakistan army has no choice but to react. It has to do something. You can't just take an attack like this lying down. But at the same time, I think what Qamar Chima says is also true, is that they are stretched very thin. So that is going to be a huge problem for them. And having wars inside the country, which, I mean, the number of terrorist attacks, I think, has gone up from last year by some almost 90% or something. So they have a huge problem there. I mean, the Baloch and the Pashtuns have come together. There's a whole protest going on in Islamabad. The UN has taken notice, and on top of that, they have this. So it's a bit of a catch-22 situation. If they react, they're in trouble. If they don't react, they're also in trouble. So let's see what they can do.
So what kind of preparations are there, Mr. Suratwala, in Tehran? Are they really prepared for a retaliation?
जी, यही सिचुएशन है कि अगर वो जो रिएक्शन की उम्मीद है कि मसलन पाकिस्तान की आर्मी की तरफ से कोई रिएक्शन होगा या वो रिएक्ट करेंगे, तो यहाँ पर ईरानी IRGC के जो कमांडर्स हैं, उन्होंने एकदम क्लियर इस बात को कहा है कि चाहे इराक में जो उन्होंने कुर्दिस्तान पर अटैक किया था, इसराइल के सेंटर पर, और इसी तरह से इदलिब पे, और फिर अब यहाँ पर पाकिस्तान में, तो वो एकदम क्लियर वो ये कह रहे हैं कि अगर कोई रिएक्शन होता है तो हम अपनी सिक्योरिटी को लेकर, अपनी हिफाजत को लेकर किसी तरह का कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं करेंगे। पहले से ज्यादा सख्त अंदाज में हम उसका जवाब देने के लिए पूरी तरह से तैयार हैं। ये ईरान ने इस तरह से कहा है। शायद अगर पाकिस्तान रिएक्ट करना चाहता है तो सबसे बेहतर रिएक्शन उसका ये हो सकता है कि वो जो टेररिस्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस उसके यहाँ एक्टिव हैं और कोई काम करती हैं, तो शायद ये बहुत लॉजिकल होगा कि वो उनके रास्ते को, उनकी फंडिंग को और उनके राबते को अपने से पूरी तरह से कट करें और खत्म करें। ये सबसे लॉजिकल और जरूरी है कि जो हर एक के लिए फायदे में होगा।
All right, thank you so much for joining us, Tara Karta, Ambassador Srivastav, M.H. Suratwala, Dr. Hassan Al Hassan, and Qamar Chima. Our story will continue to track very closely. That's all from me. Thanks so much for watching.